Today, I'm delighted that I'm joined by Oliver Deeming, who's head of grounds out of FC Copenhagen. Oliver, how's it out there today?
It's been a wet one today. Autumn is definitely on its way. We've been very lucky with a dry period, but I think that luck's starting to I say dry out, but it's actually going to start getting wet.
So, everyone can know now that you're obviously not Danish. So, you're, I think, what, Northampton way? Is that where you grew up?
Grew up in the east of England, so I'm actually from a small town called Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. So for those that don't know, it's kind of halfway between Ipswich and Cambridge.
And your turf journey started out at Northampton, but it wasn't actually an apprenticeship to start off with, was it? Or anything to do with turf?
Well, so actually, I'm a keen rugby player, so that's kind of what I spent most of my youth doing. I was in a fortunate position where I played a decent level, so I represented the county, but also managed to represent sort of it was called the Elite Player Development Program at Northampton. So I was in that when I was sort of 14, 15, 16. And then I got released from that. I didn't quite make it. Still tried to play rugby to a decent standard. Tried to play for my local team, Bury, because they're semi-professional. But unfortunately, I actually broke and dislocated my ankle, which stopped me from playing. And no matter how hard I tried to come back, it was never the same. So I was kind of lucky in the way that I had a sort of an experience with sort of lawn care at home. So I'd always look after the grass at mum and dad's, and if I was bored, I'd just go and put different patterns in the grass and all sorts. And luckily for me,
John Ledwidge.
yeah, in a way, I was bringing out my inner Leicester City before the trend hit. And then so one of my lads who was on my rugby team, his dad was actually the groundsman at Bury. His name's Andy Spetch. It might be a name that you're familiar with from British Sugar, and he gave me the opportunity to help him and actually go part-time when I'd finished college, and put me on my level 2 with the GMA. So I did that for 2 years, and it just got to a point where I knew it was the career I wanted, but part-time work at Bury just wasn't going to fulfill. So I reached out to Northampton Saints, and Wayne Billing was the head groundsman at the time.
Right.
And he offered me an apprenticeship to do my level 3. So straight away, that's the progression that I wanted from where I was. So went to the rugby club, wanted to play there, but in the end actually went there as groundsman. And
Yeah.
2.5, 3 years there, learning from apprentice up to deputy head groundsman was a really, really good opportunity.
So that was quite a fast learning curve for you then, if you went as an apprentice and got to deputy head within 2.5 years.
Yeah, it was intense, and that's kind of how I like it. I mean, for me, it's a passion, and putting in all those hours to try and make the surfaces as good as they can be, because we might not necessarily be playing on them, but we want it to be good for the players, but also from a sort of our point of view, we want it to look well and presented well on TV, and for the fans to show that as a club and as a department, we really care about the surfaces.
So you're working with Wayne there. Your
Mm-hmm.
next stop was one of the finest places in the world to work, I would argue, Tottenham Hotspurs training ground. Was that with Wayne again?
Yeah, so actually, before I went to the training ground, Wayne took me on at the new stadium. So
Oh, okay.
when I was at Northampton, I was part of the match day team at Spurs when they first moved in. So I kind of had a little bit of a taste of what it was going to be like. And then a job came up in, I think it was 2021, so which then I went to the stadium and did 2.5 years at the stadium. And
Oh, wow, okay.
amazing experience to see, the kind of infrastructure. There's not many, if any, other grounds in the world that have that, and to sort of be one of the first to work in there and work on it was quite an amazing experience.
So what was the biggest difference from being at Northampton to being at a stadium like the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium?
I'd say, first of all, my commute to work was a lot harder.
Yeah.
But in terms of the actual sort of stadium itself, it was just a completely different beast. Like, don't get me wrong, for a rugby stadium, Northampton was a good ground, 15,500. But to go from that to 62 complete wrap round stadium with minimal sunlight was a a big difference and a massive learning curve, alongside obviously having all the technology to go alongside it. So it was a very different experience.
Yeah, so I guess you didn't have much in the way of lights at Northampton, but you had something called the sun that could get at it a bit easier, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a couple of small token gesture lights, but at the end
Okay.
of the day, with the budget we were on, we just couldn't afford to go like that. So, and I think the actual sort of other one as well, that was the big thing for me, was that Spurs were very, very good at personal development. So they put you on all sorts of training courses without question. You're spraying, you know, machinery, so like tractor use, etc. And then also the actual surfaces we're working on. So at the stadium, we were working on state-of-the-art hybrid carpet, new pitch every year. Whereas at Northampton, we were trying to nurse through a 20, 30-year-old pitch every year. So
Right.
in terms of that, it was just the quality and resource was that much higher that it enabled me personally to thrive off that.
Do you think the job was harder at Northampton because of the tools you had, or do you think it was harder because of the expectations at Tottenham?
I would say in terms of resource and the actual surfaces, it was probably more difficult in Northampton because we always, yeah, in a way, it was always against us no matter what. But in terms of Tottenham, it's like, yeah, you could argue it was an easier environment to work, but the responsibility and expectation, in my opinion, was so much higher that then actually that's an added pressure. So it's kind of, it's similar in a way, but then it's not similar, if that makes sense. From what I sort of experienced.
I guess the demands on the surface are a bit different as well when you're looking at, certainly the game that's played is one thing, but how many matches were you playing on the surface at Northampton compared at the stadium at Spurs?
Um, I'd say it was probably a fairly similar schedule, but the one thing at Northampton that we did have a lot of was training in the stadium. For instance, they would always do training in the stadium match day -1, regardless of being home or away. But then the issue we had is because the training pitches weren't constructed, they were in the winter, they would hold water, lose grass coverage. So in the winter, they would actually maybe come in minute like once a week plus the match day -1. And then,
Yeah.
so then when you add all that up on an aging pitch that has no stability, it was a big challenge. Whereas at Tottenham, they didn't train in the stadium at all. So we'd had one less thing to worry about. It was only the match day -1s for the European games, which was very rare that a team would actually use that to come in and train.
So you then moved on to the training ground, I think, didn't you?
Yeah.
So apart from a slightly easier commute, I guess, was that?
To be honest, it was similar in terms of time. It was similar, and going in the morning was okay, but coming home it took just as long to go from the stadium as it would to the training ground, because that A10 junction by the training ground's awful. You could be queuing for 45 minutes. So that was a very off-putting thing in the end, which is why Denmark is brilliant, because I walk to work.
So, any big differences? Did you feel different expectations? I mean, you're probably seeing more of the players and the coaching staff and having more interaction with those people.
Yeah, so for instance, like if I compare it to Northampton, we were liaising with the coaching staff regularly and would say hi to players and stuff. And I'd say it's more like a feel of Northampton. It's a bit more of like a family feel. Whereas like with Tottenham, it was a very professional environment. We wouldn't really go near the players, and game day again, we wouldn't really go near. We would speak to like the keeper, goalkeeper staff, and the assistant staff just to say where we want them to warm up. But in general, we keep away. And then when I was at the training ground, I was actually on the junior section, so I didn't really have much to do with the first team anyway. But in terms of like Copenhagen, it's a very tight knit family club, and I could go up to our CEO's office and have a chat with him. It's that sort of tight knit. And then same with the coaching staff, I can pop into the office and just see how they're doing, see if they need anything. Players will come and say hi and stuff before training. So it's a very different environment. It's still a professional environment, but I'd say it's a little bit more sort of relaxed and family orientated.
So you didn't send Daniel Levy a text to say ta-ta when he left Tottenham then? You weren't on first name terms.
No.
Um, okay, so let's move on to what brought you to Copenhagen then?
It's an interesting one. I never ever thought about moving abroad. Never crossed my mind. I was always happy. Premier League. I want to be there. And then I just got, again, I have to thank sort of Wayne in a way. He came out here and did a talk for the Danish Superliga. And my boss just really liked what he was about. So he asked him to come to Park and have a look at the stadium pitch. And it wasn't in the greatest of condition. And he just said to Wayne, look, I need a groundsman. I need someone from the UK. And he put my name in the hat, said give Ollie a contact, and he contacted me, and I thought, right. And I turned to the missus. I said, I've just had an email from a potential job offer as head groundsman at the time. She said, oh, right, where's that? It's in Denmark. And she just looked at me and said, we have just bought a house in England. We've been here not even 2 months and you're already looking to leave. And but either way, I just thought, you know what, let's go and have a look. And I'd heard things about Denmark. I'd never really thought about going to visit. You always think of it as Scandinavia. It's a good place to go to a Christmas market. I've since learned it's not just that. But went out, met him, and looked at the training ground, looked at the stadium, and I just felt it was a big risk in terms of the media coverage that they've been having for several years, but it was a big challenge. And I felt like it was a challenge that I could actually go and make a big improvement based on what I was sold. And, you know, I think the sort of results now sort of speak for itself, that you can see that I'm really enjoying it. And me and my team are doing a great job.
You're certainly getting good reviews. And from what I hear from people, you've really have turned the place around. What's been the key thing that you've done that has made the difference?
I think key one is, first of all, is education. So it's educating the guys upstairs. They've been, you know, in a place where they've not necessarily been going for the top quality. And I know budget does come into that. But I think also a way that the department was also very sort of under-resourced and pushed aside. And a lot of things just were so old from 20 years ago that it was all left in the past. And what I've kind of brought in is a fresh mentality that, you know, this is the standard we want and we are going to reach it. But also alongside, you know, just education upstairs, but also the contracting guys that were in with us, you know, teaching those guys the right way of doing things, how to set up machines, how to do this, how to do that, and doing the basics well. And I think they're sort of some of the key things that have really sort of turned it around for us.
So in terms of the processes, have you changed much rather than just educating people to do the job properly?
Yeah, so in terms of like the stadium, we now since I've been here, we've used three different pitch suppliers. First one was before I arrived, and then we tried a new supplier last year. Big improvement on previous. However, I still felt we could go one better. And then this year we changed supplier, and then you can probably see in the background that's what we've got at the moment. And you know, straight away it's recognizing the right sort of suppliers and partners to work with. So for the stadium,
so who are you working? Who's the pitch supplier now?
So pitch supply for us this year is Hatco Hybrid Grass. So we've come into a partnership with them this year, and you know, we're noticing a big increase in quality, which is, you know, the first step. Same at the training ground. You know, we had two. When I arrived, we had 2 stitch pitches. One was from SIS and one was from a Danish contractor. The third pitch had failed, needed reconstructing. So straight away I said, right, they like this pitch too, which was built by SIS. So you need to do exactly the same on the other pitch to do that consistency. So we've done that, constructed that pitch. So we're now in a place where, in terms of like the actual surfaces and constructions, we're in a stable and consistent place, which I think was one of the key things that they were missing. And then if we look back to Parken, we've got a full set of lighting rigs, and then we were given the go-ahead when I first joined to buy three more large rigs. So again, we're adding to our sort of equipment base, which then allows us to increase the quality because we've got more lights on the pitch to get more recovery. Leading into that, one of the things that we have, it's similar in London, is the water quality in Denmark isn't the greatest. We've got a high pH and high bicarbonate in our water. So we've worked with you know, with certain people to try and figure out what's the best way to do it, and we've installed an acid injection system at the stadium to treat the water, and we're seeing massive results and benefits from that, healthier turf, etc. And these are all little 1% that makes such a big difference. And I believe that's part of the success for what we've done.
That's your rugby background and Clive Woodward coming out there, isn't it? 1%.
I can't take all the credit for it. I will say Wayne's given me a lot of help since I've been here. So
um, so that acid injection system, is that an expensive thing to put in?
yeah, it's not cheap. I mean, there's different ways that you can do it. Back in the UK, we just had a simple dosing unit that went straight from the acid and straight into the line, into the pitch. It's a little bit more difficult for us here because our irrigation tank is actually underneath the synthetic around the edge of the pitch, and the pumps are submersible. We haven't really got a direct line straight into the pipes into the sprinklers, so we actually have to dose it into our tank, which means we've actually had a pH regulator system put in. So we dilute it and then we set the pH and then it sucks in. So I think you're looking around 15,000 pounds to put that system in. But with the issues I've had over the past and etc., it's showing to be money well spent.
Not just well spent. Does it actually show you savings in other things, in other areas?
Yeah. So I still go with the same nutrition plan as I do, but I do notice more longevity out of the products.
Right. Okay.
So, if I wasn't in such a high profile venue with a lesser budget, then I could probably cut back on my fertilizer most likely, but it's not a risk I'm going to take. That's kind of what I see with that.
And differences, I mean, we think of Denmark as probably being a bit colder than the UK. Have you got a different set of climate issues to deal with than you would have done in the UK?
I would say in general, it's pretty much the same. The only difference is that the winters are harsher when they do come. The winter just gone wasn't too harsh, but it was still, I'd say, lower temperature on average and with a bit more snowfall. And I would say from experience, spring takes a bit longer to come over here than it does back in England. But in terms of the summer, it's a little bit cooler, but we still got 25 to 28 degrees when it was the hot period. So I wouldn't say it's too dissimilar. Maybe the only thing is that the daylight hours are slightly longer in the summer and slightly shorter in the winter.
And pests and disease, is it similar, or are you seeing different things than what you had to experience before?
Again, very similar. We've had incidences of brown patch, fusarium, leaf spot is one that we get a lot, which is what we also used to get a lot at Spurs Stadium. The only thing that we haven't seen yet, and God forbid we don't have, is grey leaf spot. I think we are just out of the sort of the higher risk zone. But as we've seen in England for the past sort of 5-6 years, as the temperatures increase, we're starting to see more and more coming into the UK. And I imagine in the next 2-3 years that we'll probably see similar in Denmark.
You getting dollar spot up there?
I think it is a big thing in Denmark, but not so. I haven't seen it on our pitches, but I know, speaking to other reps and groundsmen, that it is about.
So you took the decision to go over there. You got promises made, and we assume promises have been kept.
Mm-hmm.
Amongst those promises, was there a certain amount of extra investment, or was it kind of, this is your budget, you've got to inherit what was there before?
Yeah, so my boss Kim he's typical Dane, to the point, tells you how it is, and actually he has delivered. So straight away I came in, he said, right, we know we need to spend more money, we need to push the budget, we've got to convince the board. So I've asked for a lot of stuff and they've backed. We've had new tractors, new mowers, new lights, frost sheets. So 9 times out of 10, when we put something in and put the right reasoning behind it, they will near enough back it. So from what I was promised in terms of investment, building the department, we're now restructuring, getting more staff. These are all things that I'd spoken about when I wanted to come, and they're coming into fruition. So they have sort of kept the promise on their side.
So does that mean you're going to move away from using the contractors and you're going to have your own team?
Yeah, so that's the plan at the minute. So we've got obviously myself, then I've got Callum, who's the assistant head of grounds. I've got Andreas, who's from Denmark. Callum, by the way, is from the UK. Andreas is from Denmark. He's an assistant groundsman. I've got Kieran, who starts on Monday, coming from Huddersfield. And then I've got Matthias, who's a young lad from Denmark doing his apprenticeship with us, starting on Monday. I've then got 2 more guys hopefully lined up to start sort of in the new year. So in the meantime, covering them will be the external contractors. And then once my staff come in, they will be phased out of the full-time work, but they will still be included on match days and extra days if we need extra staff for short turnarounds.
You mentioned, you made the case, as it were, to the board with your boss as well. Was that something that you had experience of before? How did you prepare yourself for that?
It's definitely a new thing for me. I haven't had to sort of put proposals before, and my boss was actually very good in helping me with that, telling me exactly what he wanted, because from his point of view, he's not a groundsman. He doesn't know the jargon. He doesn't know, this, that. So he said to me, look, I need you to tell me what the facts are, etc. And then I will help you put a case to put forward, because he knows how the board think here. He knows how his bosses think. So again, having that on my side has also been a massive help.
It's almost talking a different language when you go into that scenario, isn't it? You can talk the talk and walk the walk on the turf, and you know what you need. But if you can't get that across in a language that the people you're speaking to understand, which normally comes down to what's it going to save us, basically, or what's the risk? Yeah.
And that's it. And the biggest thing I've learned is I'm one of these guys that will try and go into too much detail, especially when like writing an email. So I'll say, I need to cover this, 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 and this. And then I'll come back with like a, 5-page email explaining everything. And my boss said it's too much. He goes, they turn off. And actually what I have learned with his help is over the last 18 months to just go to the point, short and sweet. This is what it's going to cost. This is a saving. This is why, etc. So in the space of 18 months, I've gone from writing a 10-page essay to 1 page. This is bang, bang, bang.
4 bullet points. Yeah.
And like we were discussing earlier off camera, is they're not kind of things that you're taught and trained in. It's kind of something you've just thrown in at deep end and you've got to learn. And I think from the experience, that's probably one of the things in terms of the management side, is being thrown in. And actually, I've never done it. Just got to do it and see how we get on.
Obviously, becoming a manager in a totally new setup is a bit different to stepping up when you're one of the lads and suddenly the guys that are your mates you've got to be the manager for, which can create complications. But how have you found that transition of managing people?
I think it's been good. I think because I've been able to build it from the start. For instance, I didn't know Callum, I didn't know Andreas, so you kind of can build that sort of professional relationship straight away in terms of this is what I want, this is what I expect. But I'd like to think I've been pretty good. So for instance, at Tottenham, I had my own section, albeit we didn't have many staff in that section, but had Lewis and then Adam, the apprentice that would come across and help. And again, just sort of managing those guys and trying to work with them was also a big help. And the biggest thing I've learned about managing people is that everyone's different. Everyone else has a different opinion, and you can't always try and please everybody, because for instance, I might please this person, but then the other person might not be pleased with that. So it's kind of like you've got to take your sort of personal and emotional side out of it and think, right, this is what I want to achieve. You guys are either on the same page, or we have to figure out how we do it. So it's just a big evolving sort of role for me, I believe, from what I've personally learned and seen.
Do you think there's more training needed around that for grounds managers?
Yeah, I would say personally. I think in terms of the actual like practical side of the job, I think the training is pretty good, as you can see with the amount of high class groundsmen and groundsmen, men and women across the industry, doing all sorts of levels. There's a certain standard and consistency there now. But however, when it's stepping into these more corporate, organizational sort of clubs where there's more interaction with hierarchy, yeah, it's I think I'm lucky in a way that I've come to a club like FC Copenhagen that's they are professional, but they're more family sort of friendly orientated. Whereas I think if I got pushed straight in the deep end at like Tottenham, for instance, I probably would have struggled a bit more, because I imagine it's a lot more cutthroat. This is what we want, and I think there definitely needs to be more management training and awareness in that, because I think that will really help push on sort of the next sort of generation of grounds managers in our industry.
And we also spoke before we started the interview about how the job's regarded in the UK. What's the comparison like? Because I think I think we all recognise in the industry that it needs to be better recognised in terms of the skill and the fact that it's a professional job, not just cutting grass and sometimes watering it, which is a line I try out all the time. How is it regarded in Copenhagen and Denmark in general?
Yeah, so if I was to describe groundsmanship in Denmark, I would say there's a willingness to get better. However, they're probably 10, 15 years behind the UK. And
Okay.
that's mainly because of, firstly, resource, but also exposure. It's not seen as a skilled profession. It's not seen as that. And the thing we have over here is a lot of the professional football clubs, for instance, are actually, their grounds are owned and run by the communes and the municipality.
All right.
So then it's guys that are employed by the council to go in and do the job. They have a certain budget, a certain time. And the thing is, and I'll give the Danes their credit, they're very good at coming in and going off on time, switch off, done. That's me for the day. And they're very good at that. Whereas us English, we're Brits, we're like, we won't go until the job's done right. And you do see that. But what we are slowly seeing now, and I think it's also a case with the Superliga, they've brought in Pro Pitch to sort of oversee pitch quality.
Yeah.
And the clubs now are starting to take it a lot more seriously. They're starting to, invest where they can, and you're seeing an increase in quality amongst the pitches. But it's, again, there's a wider variety. People still don't really know what we do.
So not too far behind the UK then, to be honest, in that respect.
In a way, it's a difficult, because I think in the UK it is, people do know it. There's a lot more, in terms of football, there's a lot more clubs to give that exposure, whereas in Denmark it's very tight knit. And one of the things that we have seen, and I think has been a positive thing here, is obviously since me and my team have sort of come in, we have had a lot of positive media exposure for parking. Previously it was it's deemed as a bad pitch. It's never been right for 20, 30 years, whatever. Right. We've changed it, and we've had a lot of positive press from that. And there are people now outside of the club that, if they see, for instance, Marcel from the contractors, he's gone out to go and buy something and talking to someone about what he does, and then they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that on TV, I've seen this. So
okay, it
is getting there. It's just, I think the thing is the market's so much smaller, if that makes sense. There's only 1 million people that live in Copenhagen itself, whereas obviously London's must be 12 million or something like that. So it's all relative.
And that's great for you that it's getting that recognition. What sort of timescale was it for you getting through the door to getting to something that you could starting to get noticed as being better, do you think? Not just by you, but
yeah. So I think within the first 6 months, we had made a good impression. But again, the first 6 months was coming into the back end of the season, spring was coming in, so it's kind of expected that the pitch should be good. Yeah. I think where people started to sort of take notice was we started last season, got through to the winter break, and the pitch was still in good condition. And then we came out to February, first game back, and again the pitch was still in very good conditions. Then everyone's like, oh wow, what's gone in Parkin? And then that's where I think a lot of media outlets and fans and stuff were then starting to sort of see, oh, actually something positive is happening here. And I've had several sort of interviews with different media outlets explaining what we've done and etc. So it has been seen.
That's good. It's also great for the reputation of British or UK grounds management, or grounds professionalism, should we say, which is still the amount that we see Brits going abroad and making good impressions. We see it all over the place, and in many, like you said with the Danish there, they wanted a British or probably somebody who got Premier League experience to come in and manage their turf, because they know the standard that they're going to be able to deliver to.
Yeah,
given
yeah,
resources. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the way I look at it is, they've seen that they need to do something and they've done it. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other groundsmen out there who could have done the same job as me, if not better. I was just very fortunate to be in that position. But the way I look at it is, I don't think it's sustainable to keep bringing people in from abroad. So the way I look at it now is like, okay, they've done the first step, they've done an immediate fix. So now it's like my job to make it consistent, and then hopefully with my new apprentices and hopefully more local staff, to say, right, we'll train you up, and then when the time's right, you can take over, and then you don't need to keep bringing people in from the UK.
Raise the standard across the country.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a really worthy ambition to have, and I think if that happens, then it's just another consequence of this willingness to share within our industry. Yeah, and I think as I've said to you, I've worked in many different industries on the media side of things, and there's not anything like this industry for being happy to share information, even though in some respects might be competitors on the pitch with one another's teams, and you might also be competitive by wanting to have pitch of the year or just be known for producing the best surface, but you still won't keep all your secrets. It's
No, that's it. And I think there is obviously some stuff that you do keep secret, but I won't lie. I message a lot of people because I'm always looking for second opinions. And like I said, I mentioned Wayne. There's James at London Stadium. I've messaged him several times. He's helped me out. Nick at Tottenham. And others as well. And it's just that sort of confirmation that you're doing things right. Where you can go to these guys that are very experienced, they've proved themselves no end, and then you sort of, oh, I'm looking at doing this, what do you think? And the fact that they give you the time of day and the information and the help back, I think shows you actually how strong this industry is in terms of the people, and we're always looking to sort of help each other.
So, what's been the biggest surprise for you moving into a new culture and a new working environment?
That's a good question. The biggest surprise, I would say, is how much I've loved it. In terms of obviously moving away from home and family is never the easiest thing. And yeah, I struggled at the start, but the biggest surprise for me now is, it might not come as a surprise because of how the UK is at the minute, but I don't want to go back to the UK. I'm very settled and happy here, and my partner is as well. She doesn't want to go back. So I think that was probably the biggest thing, is the fact that both of us, if we could, depending on visa, we would love to stay here for a long time.
Do you have children yet, or is that on the cards? Or
No, not yet. I think we're a bit busy for that.
okay, so it was an easier move than some have if they got to take family with
Yeah,
them.
well, the only tie we had back home was the house. Well, we've rented that out, so that's one less thing to worry about. And I'm very career driven. So for me, if I can do what I love as long as I can at the highest standard that I can, then I've got to make the most of it. And then when the time's to go back to the UK, then the time's there to go back to the UK. So just want to try and make the most of it whilst I can, because anything can happen.
So you're employed by the club or by the stadium? You're employed by the club,
I'm employed by the club, yeah.
and you look after the training grounds, obviously, as well as the stadium there.
Yeah.
But I think, is it the national stadium? Because I think Denmark do play at Copenhagen as well, don't they?
Yeah, so we have the national team here as well. They normally play four to five matches a season in the stadium. And then we have also got the ladies national team playing here this year as well.
Oh, right, okay.
So that's the first game they've played in here for a few years. So it's gonna start getting even more so.
So are you having to deliver to two sets of people that have different opinions, or is it still delivering very much to one outfit?
Yeah, so to be honest, we prep it as if it's FCK playing. We're always trying to do it to Premier League standard. So we haven't had, I don't think we've had any complaints yet that I remember or know of. And so in terms of that, it's been fine. I think the biggest sort of difference and challenge is trying to get it consistent with the training ground and the stadium.
Right.
The issue we have there is we've got a different construction in the stadium compared to the training ground. So if FCK do notice it, that will probably be what the notice is, like, oh, the training pitch is playing like this, but the stadium's playing like that. They haven't said much yet, but you never know.
A construction, and you've also got a bit of a different environment in the with the stadium around a pitch, which, you know, obviously brings its own set of conditions, very different, not least in your environment with so little sunlight through probably the worst time of year that you could do without the sunlight, I guess.
Yeah, but then I suppose the lucky thing is we have actually got a retractable roof. So if weather and conditions really aren't favourable, we can actually shut the roof. So yeah, there's probably some silver linings where actually we're quite lucky.
Did the international, the first international that you had on your pitch, feel a different vibe to, you know, a club game? Did it feel like a step up?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when my first one. It was March 2024. Yeah, I think so. But I suppose the thing is that the comparison I have is, like, my first game for Copenhagen was Manchester City in the Champions League last 16. So in terms of games, I actually think that was the biggest game that I've, you know, had the pleasure of sort of preparing a pitch for. Atmosphere was electric, good game. Yeah, I think that was probably the one where I felt most nervous because it was my first game.
Yeah.
And it was Man City in the Champions League. So when it comes to that first national game, I probably wasn't so nervous.
Wait till you get Spurs there, then it'll amp up again. Oliver, it's been fascinating speaking with you. It really has been a joy for me to do this. Genuinely mean that. You're obviously passionate about the role. You're obviously thoroughly enjoying what you're doing out there, and quite honestly, you're having a huge impact, not just on the surface you're looking after, but hopefully Danish surfaces in general, or Scandinavian even. Let's not just keep it to that. So keep doing what you're doing. I hope you're still smiling next time I speak to you. And thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good to meet you.